What is up, guys? Welcome to the Unfazed Facts Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Gym Leader Challenge. I'm your host, Joshua Benson. I'm with my co-host, Jeff Baisch, and we're here to talk about all things Gym Leader Challenge. Now, on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about a lot about EUIC, what happened at the Gym Leader Challenge tournaments over across the pond from the U.S. We're going to have a new segment, what we call a Quick Attack. And then after that, we're going to talk about how you can kind of get into your prizes, because sometimes in your Gym Leader Challenge games, prizing is always terrible, absolutely horrendous. But Jeff, I've had a pretty busy week. It's been extremely busy. It's been a good busy. Bunch of fitness things at the gym that I have to deal with. Got a bunch of allergies. I got my box of tissues here, so you're going to see me wiping my nose a bunch right here, so you guys can see, how I blow my nose. I'll have it on mute, of course. But Jeff, how was your week?
Dude, I just been enjoying the sunny days. The allergies are hitting the Baisch household too. You'll probably hear me cough here and there as well. But it's been just a great time to get outside here in South Carolina, where I'm located. Taking the sun outside for a walk here and there, getting on a bike ride. Just great. It's great. Seasonal depression is gone. All that cold weather. At least I hope. Thinking about our garden, it's just an exciting time of year. You see all the houses going up for sale. That's when the warm weather's coming. It's when the new people are putting the houses up for sale for the next school year. So excited to see those things and excited to talk GLC.
It's funny that you say that. My house is finally getting listed on Monday, tomorrow.
'Tis the season, so
'tis the season, buddy. Hopefully it goes and sells fast, because we are in dire need of a new place. But with EUIC, that just happened, big old tournament that happened across the pond, we got 109 players that participated with 7 rounds and a top 8 cut. And this is the Switch series, right? Where they can win a Switch if they win. Am I right? Or is it just called the Switch series?
Yeah, this was the Switch series. Yeah. So deck lists were required, as far as official events goes. This is as close as we've been to the most official of officials. So it's great to see that. Again, you mentioned 7 rounds plus a top 8 cut. This feels like kind of like a mini GLC regional on its own. So it's really cool to see this, especially coming out of Europe.
Yes, I love seeing it whenever GLC can hit tournament numbers of 100 plus. It's always cool. And the meta call is so vast whenever you do that. It's just incredible. But whenever it comes to getting all the information with these IC tournaments, a lot of the time we have a few people. Usually it's posted on the Cardboard Warriors site. We have Weeder and Andre Costella that got all of the information together for us. Of course, there are countless other people that put all the information together that these two kind of combined all together. So these aren't the only 2 that got all the information together, but these are the 2 that we can thank. We're going to get into the meta of this tournament now. Jeff, whenever you look at this tournament, is this a lot of colorless?
We've been talking about colorless being top dog for a while now, so it's good to see that people show up to a big event, and what did they think the best deck was? They thought it was colorless. And so, that's a lot of colorless there, guys. And then you're looking at these other percentages. We normally see the top 3, colorless, psychic, and water. Water's getting usurped by Dragon here. Dragon, the 3rd most popular type, played at 12.7%. Josh, that kind of surprised me. Did that surprise you?
Man, when Dragon overtakes and rounds out other popular decks, it always surprises me. But what's not surprising is that it is becoming a better deck, and people are finding ways to make Dragon just work. And whenever it used to be super clunky, you got cards like Crispin that allow you to be able to have a little bit more free with their use of energy, being able to get an energy out of the deck, put it in their hand, get another energy out of the deck, a different one, and put it onto the Pokemon, so you're able to have some energy acceleration. It works well with most of the dragons, because dragons have those tough energy costs. And there's just all sorts of different ways that you can get out. And they also have access to DDE, where that's just a double rainbow energy. Dragon has a lot of support whenever it comes to these crazy energy costs now. So it's not too surprising, but it is kind of funny that water is kind of slowly, going down. But, with Journey Together coming out, we might be seeing water getting a big uptick again, but also Colorless. And Colorless has not seen a downtick whatsoever.
Yeah, of course. And, I think you hit the nail on the head there with double energies. Double energies are taking over Gym Leader Challenge to a certain degree, and Dragon's right there along with Colorless. And then just all the things that Psychic can have and do. I think just like that player autonomy, like that, what it gives you access to, I think really makes Psychic popularity. Now, you mentioned Water's downtick. I actually think Water has a very good matchup into Colorless. So I'm actually really surprised that people didn't pick that as more of a maybe meta blocker into Colorless a little bit. But we see here, we've talked about it for a while, grass, fire, fighting, just not super popular types. And they're down there along with metal to a certain degree at 7.3% of the overall meta. Darkness too. Just not being as popular as some of the stronger types. So I hate to see it, but again, we still got those people playing their favorites showing up, and we're going to see that some of those types that people didn't show up with actually did perform well in the right pilot's hands.
Oh, yes, and that's what I was just about to touch on. With those smaller deck numbers, some of those came out doing really well amongst the big three types. What we got here is we have, the top 8 right here being a Hitmondogi deck going up first place. And we got Metal second, Turbo Mina third, Turbo Snorlax fourth, Spread, Lightning Spread fifth, Dragon sixth, Lightning Spread again for seventh, and then Hitmondogi again kind of rounding out our top 8 there. And you can kind of see the matchups here. Unfortunately, you got a fighting in the top 8, which is unfortunate because, fighting had a good chance of, taking the whole thing if there were 2 chances in top 8 or top 4. So unfortunate for fighting to get that mirror match and everybody else kind of get, an opposing different type. But this is what the top 8 rounded out to be. And you don't see any Water. You don't see any Psychic, 2 of the other biggest, most popular decks, more well-rounded decks. But then you do see Colorless. And I always think Colorless just has such a good matchup against all sorts of different decks. And I mean, the only way that Colorless isn't going to be a good deck or not going to be in the top 8 is if everybody counters Colorless. And when you counter Colorless, you're not countering other decks. So that's just kind of one of those things where if you expect everybody to play Colorless, then you might want to play a big counter to Colorless. But other than that, with this big of a matchup spread and 109 different players, trying to take out one type just is not worth it. So you'll always see, Colorless on the top.
Yeah. And again, it's really cool to see, you mentioned people not necessarily playing counters to it, but some of these types, have pretty good matchups in the decks like Big Benches and Fan Rotom getting printed. We're seeing Lightning Spread up here 2 times in the top 8.
Yeah.
Big Benches are becoming a thing, and people are running parallel in their decks to counter. Well, Spread decks are over here just happy to see it. Again, please Fan Rotom me on turn 1. You're going 3, 4, 5 wide on turn 1. Well, hey, I'm just going to get in the, Tapu Koko, which we'll see a bit in some of these deck lists, get spreading. Same thing with Hitmondogi. Be aggressive early, get that spread damage in. We're actually going to see the Hitmondogi list lose in the top 4 to Colorless because probably Lugia, right? Fighting resistance. Why, birds? Why? But, it was really cool to see some of these decks and to see some of these decks have really good matchups in the Colorless and make a really interesting top 8. Like, I wish that we had access to some of these gameplays because I'm just picturing how these matchups were going, what the players were maybe thinking about as they were playing it, and just like that mini chess game going on in their heads as they kind of had a little bit of time to sit after the first couple rounds to think about what top 8 was going to be like was really cool. So obviously we did have a winner being the type that we all thought would probably win most things and colorless. And I guess we can get to those deck lists now.
Yeah, and I mean, also with metal being, in the top finals, top two, it was a good counter to spread, which you see right here in the top 8. We have, 4 different spread decks as well, 2 being Lightning, 2 being Hitmontopoli. And, metal maybe has a good matchup against spread, most likely if it plays Crystal Cave and different things like that. It is a tankier type or style of deck. And it just has, tools to be able to combat that. So if people were trying to play spread to be able to take out, things such as colorless or grass or water or psychic with big benches, then we have, metal being like, okay, playing 4D chess, okay, I think everybody's going to play spread. So I'm going to play my metal deck, which can, take up a lot of that spread just by healing like a Rough Seas or Crystal Cave, and just being able to just, tank hits over and over and over.
Yeah, as someone who plays spread, lining up against metal is one of the worst things. I think that that's probably the toughest matchup. You hit it on with healing, but also we're gonna see just like the redundancy and energy acceleration. If I snipe with Hitmonlee, the Bronzong, there might be a Metal Maker also coming up. So that 90 snipe isn't as brutal to metal as it is other types. But hey, that's the list we're going to be talking about first, our runner-up here. What I will say is, as we were going through these deck lists, they're not listed in the article that's up on Cardboard Warriors. At least the names aren't associated with the deck list. So I did have to do, a little bit of guesswork when it came to, all of this. So if I unfortunately got someone's name wrong, it's on me. I apologize, but I'm going to try my best to make sure we give credit to the people. And if there's any issues, let us know in the comments below, especially if it's your deck list. If we miscredited a deck list to someone else, or we miscredited you to a deck list that you did not play.
Oh yeah, 100% do that, please. Let us know down in the comments. But I'm a big fan of metal. I've been trying to play metal. I've been trying to make sure, my favorite Pokemon is Metagross. And I have to play my favorite Pokemon in a deck. So metal, it being one of not my favorite decks because it's just not my play style and I can't seem to make it work, such as Banshade here did. But you can see that they really went hard into the Mallow and the Sapphire Maniacs code breaking to really, synergize with the Matang's Metal Maker to be able to make sure, hey, I need to get energy out. So I want to stack 2 energy on top of my deck to be able to get this Metal Maker to guarantee me 2 energy accelerated to any of these metal Pokemon that are out there. Metagross only takes 2 energy, hits for 100 plus 100 the next turn if it stays in the active position. So you're able to hit big numbers with that. You have synergize with Dialga to where it hits for 60 plus 20 per metal energy that is on the Dialga. So it's like a hydro pumper, not as strong, but it's still a hydro pumper nonetheless. You have the Orthworm that with 3 energy on there gives you was 100 more HP, giving it 200 HP, or is 150 HP. But nonetheless, it's a big worm. And then it's hitting for 4. It does have a hefty attack cost for 4 energy cost, hits 100 and then 20 or 30 to the bench, I believe. But you got all these heavy hitters here that can tank a lot of damage, and where you got the redundancy of the Sapphire Maniac and the Code Breaking to be able to get those energies out. But like I said before, you have the Crystal Cave, you got the Lux Cape, you have the Fighting Fury Belt, just to make these Mons even tankier. And, you get to see them just negate a lot of the spread that they possibly saw throughout the tournament.
Yeah. Love this deck list. It's really cool. Some notable, I would say, exclusions, at least things that we normally see in metal lists. There's no Jirachi here. That's really interesting to me. So when you're looking at the consistency for this deck, you're almost single-handedly relying on Reverum, and then obviously, what you can manipulate the top deck with the Mallow and the Cypher Maniacs as well. And then Metagross is so sweet. I know that you and I are both kind of fans of just shoving Metagross into a deck already, right?
Yeah.
It hauls your Metang if you need more HP, which makes the spread matchup even better. And then sometimes you just draw it and you just pop on your bench and draw 3, and then you've got a 2 energy attacker. So I just really like that Metagross. Again, besides, the stacking of the top deck, there's not a lot else going on. Like, you're not going to see Max Revive in this list. Another really cool thing that I like is 11 energy. When you Metang hard. 11 basic metal energy with ways to shuffle back in energy. You got Mount Coronet as well. So it feels right. Sometimes we see counter or reversal make their way into these lists. It's kind of like this is my concession to the fact that I might be behind it somewhat since I have to get set up. But this list is 11 straight basic metal energies. Love it, love it, love it. Congrats to Baisch.
Oh, yeah. And another thing that you can do with the Cypher Maniac or the Malo or anything like that is you can stack that Metagross on top of that. So the next turn you can play that, take it from the top deck, and it has that emergency entry ability to where if you top deck it, you can put it immediately onto your bench and draw 3 cards. So it allows you to be able to get whatever else that you needed as well. So it synergizes well with that. And then you still have Metang available to be able to use a Metal Maker. So you have both Metang and Metagross out, which can be a pretty awesome combo as well.
No better feeling than having the stage 1 and the stage 2 on separate places on your bench. Just so great.
Oh, yeah. It's like very few GLC decks can do so.
Well, our champion here, I'm going to shout it out to Ingvar H. Playing, again, the deck we all knew, we all thought would probably win something big this year. And we've got Turbo Colorless. And it's just the straight fire package. Nothing too feisty about this list. You looked at where this list has been over the last, year or so since its inception, since the banning of, Research Lab. This is where we're at. And so really the kind of the cool thing is this list is playing Dodrio as extra draw. Dodrio lets you draw a card and then put a damage counter on it, and then it does, more damage for each damage counter on it. I thought that was a really, really cool inclusion. But, beyond that, it's just your Snorlax, your Cyclizar, your Kangaskhan. You've got the most busted draw engine of the game with Bidoof, Oranguru, and Squilvet. And then Fan Rotom, kind of rounds out your setup there, gathering 3 colorless Pokemon with its Fan Call ability. But, besides that, Josh, it's just a standard list. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, just like you said, standard list, it's hard whenever, GLC, I don't think will ever be solved, but it is hard to, come up with your own thing and it to be, have a huge impact, unless if you're taking for a specific tournament, but, it doesn't matter. GLC's still fun. Colorless is still fun to play, and you can always just the Dodrio is kind of a newer thing that's kind of making its way into colorless decks more so. I think kind of like Michael Zealy went in full grip the other night with the Dodrio and the Cyclizar that had the 70+70 if you use a supporter that turn. So I do enjoy that combo. I think that's a good combo. And, the Dodrio being able to give you a little bit more draw, as well as, the Squova and the Bibarel. That's pretty much all you need. So it kind of frees up your supporters to be able to, play more supporters that you might need, such as Boss, Hex Maniac, Malo and Lana, and stuff like that, as opposed to, lots of draw. So it gives you a little bit more freedom to play more tools, maybe more stadiums, more items. With the ability to be able to, get rid of your entire hand, put it on the bottom, and draw 4 again, So it's pretty cool. I do enjoy colors. It's always fun to just rip through your deck.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Dodrio again, and we saw it again in Michael Zealy's list last week. But it's like one of those cards, like having a 1 energy attacker is huge. Like being able to take a KO for 1 energy, and that's what Dodrio gives this deck. Because you're usually, like, when you're playing this deck, you're seeing a lot of cards, but you're basically always looking for a double attachment, whether that finds itself in the way of a DCE or a Mellow or Raihan or something like that. But Dodrio kind of gives you some flexibility there, which is great. And then we've also seen a lot more people. I don't want to say everyone. I don't want to say every locals or every tournament's having it, but we're seeing a lot more like Pokemon that have attacks that just blank basics, right? So in these colorless lists, having an evolution that can take a KO, I think is more important as we go forward. And I think Dodrio is a concession to that as well. So really cool to see it in the list. Again, that's really the only thing that's kind of popping up and being changed in these lists. Of course, you mentioned it as well, until Journey Together pops up and we start seeing hops all over the place.
Yeah. And Dodrio is kind of like a big and better Spiritomb, if you think about it. You put a damage counter on it, but it lets you draw. And Spiritomb just lets you put a damage counter on it, you know? So it's kind of like a bigger Spiritomb. It's kind of fun to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it can't donk, which is what Spiritomb is best at, but who needs Spiritomb when you can just fan road him for 70, right? Like, fan road him is just like, kind of like a better Spiritomb in that regard. Like, maybe a slightly worse Hoopa, or maybe equitable to Hoopa to a certain degree. You know, Goose Mahal.
Get a powerful energy on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Goose Mahal gets you the stadium. It gets you powerful energy, and it can get you muscle band, so you can be hitting and potentially. So, you know what? It's maybe better Hoopa chat.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, it's got so many different things. All right, we got third place, Nikolai S. with their Hitmonchan deck. And, you know, Hitmonchan is one of those decks that have just been seeing so much play. I see that we have Extra Enceiver being opted in here as a flip a coin, find a supporter type card to be able to get that. Some people really enjoy flipping coins, you know, and letting that decide their fate in the game. I'm not one of those people, but there are people out there that really enjoy to just play with fate and, you know, hopefully get heads. But then you have Erica's Hospitality and Rosa as, you know, some different card choices. I know that Rosa's becoming more popular, but Erica's Hospitality is definitely something that I don't see often, at least myself.
Yeah, that's definitely a card that you see less often. It's kind of popped up in these Hitmon lists recently. I haven't played it myself, but I also haven't really given it a try. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays once I get my hands on one and shove it in my deck. Obviously, you guys know me. I love to play Ninja Boy. And that would probably have to be the cut. And like, am I going to cut Ninja Boy? Probably not.
No, never.
Right. It's just too good, you know? But, you know, looking at Nikolai's list, really the one thing that kind of jumps out at me is a lot of these lists are running the unit energy that's like the fairy, dark fighting one. And this list is not running that specific energy. It's running about one less energy than typical of these types. So I'm wondering if that, obviously, it didn't matter too much. This person got third place at a 109-person event at one of the largest DLC events ever. You know, Training Court probably helps out a ton. So does Night Stretcher and Ordinary Rod, all that recovery there. Plus, I think Clara there and the stuff. But that's kind of the one thing that popped out to me was that one missing energy. Echoing Horn, always a fun card to see in these lists. You know, pop a basic back onto the bench. If you can time that perfectly with a Hitmon top turn, it basically just reads, take an extra prize. So it's really cool to see that in these lists as well. So love it, love it. And then, of course, the greatest of all tech cards, whoever thought of it was a genius. Team Magma's Great Ball. Basically, in Gym Leader Challenge, it just reads, go get a fighting energy off of Ball Guy. So really, really like that card a lot. You know, especially since this deck needs to keep tempo. And so having access to Mon Search plus Energy Search in the same card is just clutch. So I love this list. Again, congrats to Nikolai on his third place finish. Ooh, so good to see this list doing well.
Oh, yeah. With a perfectly timed devolution, team devolution, you're taking out big boys left and right. And multiple big boys at that sometimes.
Big boys be hating that Devo.
Oh, yeah. Then we got fourth place, Dayak Young. Is that how you would pronounce it, Jeff?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You can let me know down in the comments as well. But we got another colorless deck. We got more of I wonder if does this play the Mina as well with the fairy energy? I see a fairy energy in there. But usually you'll see Mina being played, the painting lady being able to, you know, get a fairy energy out of the deck and accelerate it to one of your Pokemon. We got the Crispin tech to be able to get two different basic energies out of the deck and be able to, you know, play those out just like we kind of talked with Dragon earlier. But also you get to see the Dun sparse. Whenever Dun sparse finally got an evolution, I was so happy. And we got Dun sparse. I have been waiting years and years and years for that evolution to come out, and we finally got it. And it's actually not a bad card. It has the ability, is like emergency something, I think, or emergency draw or something. But basically, it's kind of like a free pivot, or just a way to get a draw if you are in need of draw. But it lets you draw 3 cards and then you shuffle it back into the deck, which is really cool. But yeah, other than that, it's one of your, just another one of the standard colorless decks out there. And we always enjoy standard colorless decks, don't we?
Oh yeah, for sure. And this one, again, a little different than standard, right? Like, I don't know
Yeah,
if
100%.
Amina Tech has found its way in there, but yeah, we talked about always wanting to get double energies, and the other deck was like, well, I'm gonna kind of concede to the fact that maybe I won't find that. I'll play Dodrio, and this list is just like, just play other ways to get extra energy attachments. You got Mina, you got Crispin, you've got Raihan and Mela still in the deck like this. Plus, you have all those double energies. So just like, hey, make sure you hit your attachments. This is how this deck is going to go about it. Running Cinchino, the trade discard draw 2 is really cool. And then something that I think is super sweet, the Dun sparse is great. Obviously, drawing 3 cards and shuffling itself back in, being a way to kind of like take some damage off the board for a spread deck, maybe get the best use out of your fan rotom, all these different things, is that the Dun sparse gives your fighting Pokemon, or at least eliminates the fighting weakness. So just by having that Dun sparse on your bench, you've made one of your worst matchups a little bit better. And I think that's one of the reasons why this colorless deck, while so many other colorless decks didn't do well in the day, was able to kind of climb its way up into a top 4 finish. So kudos to the pilot. Again, I'm going to butcher the name, Daik Young. But dude, great list. Love it. And cool teching here for what they expected to see.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about the ability on the Dun sparse. I had completely forgotten about that. And that's an awesome call. Just like I heard that it was an awesome meta call to play fighting into this tournament. It was an awesome meta call to play the Dun sparse into this tournament. So it's like, who made the better meta call? But you can see that there's actually not that many attackers in this specific colorless deck. There's only Cyclizar, Snorlax, and Fanrotom. So I don't think there's a Kangaskhan in here. Usually you'll see Kangaskhan or Lugia, but I don't see any of those. Do you?
I don't either, but you know what? Who needs those if you can just keep recurring a Snorlax over and over and over again? So, you see Night Stretcher, you see Rescue Stretcher as all recovery options. But, obviously takes a lot of skill. Hopefully tanking is a big part of this deck. You see Bravery Charm, Luxurious Cape fighting Free Belt over there, along with Town Store as the stadium lets you grab items or not items, tool cards from your deck. So it's really cool to see this list. And sweet Ninetales art in the middle. So I don't know if this person loved Ninetales, but maybe that was one of the attackers they relied on.
Man, you know what that town store needs to be?
Lost City?
Yeah.
No. The other lists, I avoided mentioning it, but the other list was running Lost City.
I know, I just meant. Actually, Lost City would be a great counter to this deck.
That's probably the reason why it's not playing it. But Parallel City looks great here. Like, I love Parallel City so much in this list. Not only being able to, like, limit and stifle your opponent's bench, but, like, you don't have that much that you care about on your own bench either, right? So, like, you could Dun sparse away your cards, draw 3, and then, maybe limit yourself again by getting rid of your Skwovet or something to make it a tougher matchup for spread. That's always what I'm thinking about when I see a list like this, is like, what's their game plan into spread? And, obviously lots of different ways to kind of manipulate what their board looks like. So kudos. Love it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And they could still parallel themselves and still have, what they need on the bench. Oh yeah. Then we got this lightning deck that came with a really cool, like, this isn't your ordinary lightning deck. This has lots of different styles of choices here, like a lot of different gameplay styles. So usually with Electivire, you might see a Raichu pickup, basically because Electivire, spreads that 50 damage to everything, and Raichu can kind of clean up after that. But not in this deck. You see Ampharos, which if you has the ability that lets you put 2 energy from that Ampharos into the Lost Zone, and you can automatically paralyze your opponent. And then I believe it does 50 damage to 2 Pokemon for 2 energy as well. And then we have a Raikou with, if it has any energy attached to it, it takes 20 less damage. And then it does 20 damage per lightning energy that is on that Pokemon as well. So I believe it hits for like 110 or 120 whenever it has all 3 energy on there. It's funny seeing a Raikou being played in this deck because the old Raikou, did 120 to the active, 120 to the bench. So it's not near as good, but it's still like an interesting include in this specific deck. It kind of makes it a little bit tankier with the ability to be able to take 20 less damage. But we got this Rotom here that Jeff is super excited about, and I'm going to let him talk your ears off.
Oh, yeah. I love this. This Rotom was crazy. Like, it took me a while to even, like, as I was looking through this list, it caught my eye at the top right there, and I was like, what is this card? So, yeah, Rotom here, 80 HP, 1 retreat cost, weakness to fighting. It's got 2 1 energy attacks, crushing pulse. So your opponent reveals their hand, discard all item and Pokemon tool cards you find there. You know what's better than Badoo? Just doing this on turn 1 to your opponent going second. Like, I can see the cringing. Oh no, I've got rare candy. I'm going to rare candy into my explosive start. Akon. And then a decent second attack here, energy short. This damage or this attack does 20 damage for each energy attack to your opponent's active Pokemon. So maybe kind of a nifty way to clean up, especially against like colorless decks. They're going to have DCEs attached. And then you can maybe do like 60 damage, like a Snorlax after it's taken maybe an Electivire 50 or maybe even more spread damage from there. So kind of seems cool. Seems like a pretty nifty card on the whole. So I'm excited to see maybe how that card plays out. I might be sleeving this deck list up just to see how it plays because I'm very curious about this deck list on the whole. Obviously 30 HP Dynamo here that doesn't have free retreat. I've seen this card be popping up with a call sign as a way to kind of get you set up. It gets a Pokemon to your bench, whereas the other one is basically just free retreat. And then noticing that they're playing 80 HP Electabuzz and the Buddy Poffin. I'm wondering if that's maybe just a leftover of like a earlier list, because that's the Electabuzz that we all used to play, and then Buddy Puffin came out. We were like 70 HP. This one's got 80. So I'm just curious to see kind of how that played out. And then something else that really is like, I love to see is they're in on Sonya for getting energy or getting set up. And then you just see so many basic energies in their energy suite. There's no counter. There's no reversal that you sometimes see run, especially if people are playing Swelling Flash Luxray like this list is. So obviously, you mentioned that Ampharos. Obviously, you need more lightning energy for that. I'm wondering if that was the call. And I'll have to see once I start putting the list together and playing it, see kind of, if that's what the decision was.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can see the consistency as well, I mean, we got Bridget and Gloria. That's a combo that you don't see too much and too often anymore because Buddy Poffin coming out just kind of added that consistency, kind of gave you a little bit more freedom to play, exchange one of those for Buddy Poffin. But also you don't see Ball Guy in this. Usually, Ball Guy is one of those cards that are interesting because you can play it and you can thin your deck out of ball cards as well as Pokemon at the same time. So you're taking out more than usual. But in this case right here, we just got, those basic searchers, 3 onto the bench, super consistent. You can just play that. You don't have to discard anything. It's for free. It's just your supporter for turn. And then you have, all the draw right here of Colress, Cynthia. We got Marnie in, and then you have other basic searchers that you've mentioned of Sonya or basic energy as well. So there's a lot of also game. I mean, this deck right here is just Keegan's deck. I don't think anybody has ever played this style, at least from my eyes. I haven't seen it, and it made it 5th place out of 109 players, which is definitely a big deal. It kind of shows you that you can play other cards than what you usually see and still make it, especially if you don't try to just fit in anything fancy. You're just playing super simple draw cards, super simple search cards, super simple the suite. It doesn't have to be like super cute. You know, you can play this stuff and have fun with it as well and do well at big tournaments.
Yeah. Get set up and win. And that's what this deck is trying to do. Bridget, Gloria, Sonia, get set up and win. And then, no silent lab. We called this deck Lightning Spread as we were, getting into our build-up here. But, no silent lab, 2 spreaders, and then you've got, Raikou, you've got Zapdos, you've got Luxray, these big hitters. This deck could just pivot to an entirely different game plan based on what it's playing against. So it's just really cool to see. We saw this earlier. There was Solomon Shug was the player who had a really interesting, unique psychic list that was running counter energy and counter gain. We were kind of saying the same thing that we're saying now, Josh, where no one had probably played that 60 together. I feel the same way about Keegan's list, and I feel like we won't really know what this list is supposed to do till we try to put it together and really understand Keegan's 60. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing because I want to know. I want to pick Keegan's brain.
Yeah, like you said, it does. I do like decks that can decide which way they want to go depending on if their opponent has a bench barrier or not. And a lot of the time, your opponent's not going to play a bench barrier. I know that water has a bench barrier, but you don't see Manaphy played too much unless it's more of a control style. Psychic usually has a bench barrier that they do play if they play Mew, because Mew is such a good card. It has, that attack that does 3 damage counters anywhere. But you don't really see a whole lot of, super great bench barriers that people are playing, So this deck right here, whether somebody is playing it or not, can decide, like you said, early in the game, mid game, late game, when to pivot, what style.
Yeah. And no hex too. I'll point that out too. No hex. So literally no way to deal with a choke. So besides just punching the active. So cool to see. But, kudos to Keegan again. As we get into our 6th place list. And 6th place list is a list that we should all recognize. When we were talking about LAIC, this is the same exact dragon list that did well there. It's the same exact pilot here at the EUIC. So Hugo's dragon list. We see a Dragon Knight list playing Haxorus to do big damage. Got Garchomp in there for its Sonic Slip. Dracloak and Tatsugiri are going to be your consistency pieces, along with Regidrago, whose Dragon Horde lets you draw up to 4 if it's in the active. Strong basic attackers like Drampa and Drujagon round out this list. I mean, it's double energy to its core. DDE right there, screaming at us in the face, Josh. I mean, this list did well then, did well now. What are your thoughts on it?
I cannot remember what place Hugo got the last time. I was gonna look for it, but I didn't want to take too much time to look for it.
I think he won it. If I'm not mistaken.
Did Hugo win it the last time?
I think that was the tournament where Dragon just popped off, and we were like,
"It was, yeah, it was crazy." That tournament, it was just. I think they were It was a smaller tournament. It was like 34, 36 players, something like that. But still, Dragon took that tournament, and Hugo being able to then take that from playing in that 34, 36 player tournament to 109 and still placing within the top 6. This is a well-deserved needs of recognition Dragon deck, and it plays both the Haxorus and the Garchomp. Doesn't play your usual Dragonite and relies, more on Tatsugiri and Dracloak to be able to get through the deck a little bit more. Tatsugiri has that ability, attract customers, look at the top 6, find a supporter there, put it into your hand. You don't get the, cherry pick which one you get to use, but it lets you freeze up the deck 2 more cards. You don't have to wait for it. You can immediately play it and get those early supporters that you want. You don't have to wait 2 to 3 to 4 turns to get Dragonite going. You can kind of get things going pretty early on if you have some good RNG going for you. But other than that, yeah, like you said, this Dragon deck is pretty good. It's made top 8. It's 1-1. It does really well. So congrats, Hugo, for your placing in that 109 player tournament.
And in fact, I guess I did look it up because I did find the website on Cardboard Warriors. Shout out to Cardboard Warriors. Hugo was a top four. Did not win it. I think there were 3 other Dragon lists in the top 4, and Hugo was one of them. So there's that. I will say no Raging Bolt, which is still surprising me that people aren't playing Raging Bolt. I get it. Adding that lightning energy is tough, but people just aren't respecting the Bolt. And so I wonder if that's a thought that Hugo has. Again, I'd love to pick his brain too about what his thoughts are on Raging Bolt. Maybe the deck just doesn't need it. And maybe if you're not running the Sadist package, maybe it's not worth it. Because, I mean, Dragon just has so many other good attackers. So, like, I mean, just pick and choose at this point, right? So,
yeah, and I think, yeah, to your point on the Raging Bolt, I think that since he's opting to play the Haxorus, maybe because of the Haxorus play, that maybe you don't play Raging Bolt, not being able to, cherry pick your supporters later on. I don't know. That's just kind of the theory of mine.
I respect that decision a lot too, but that does let you play a ton of extra rainbow energies here that would fit very well with a Raging Bolt, all I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, then we got 7th place, Tony V, with a more familiar-looking Lightning list. We do have the Electivire and Raichu package, and then we have the that cute little Pika. I think it was that Pika Dash ability that gives it free retreat if there's an energy on there. I can't remember exactly, but I'm just looking at it mini form. But other than that, you have opted for the Earthen Vessel to coincide or synergize with being able to use the Dynamotors, be able to get energy into the discard. Playing a Timer Ball. Timer Ball is that ball that ball card that says flip 2 coins, and that's all that you do. You just flip 2 coins and nothing else happens after that. But they are playing the Silent Lab, so they can get through bench barriers and the Hex Maniac. Hex Maniac is just such a good card for most GLC decks because it just turns off so many useful abilities that your opponent can use, especially on the next turn. Bench barriers, and you can take good knockouts, and at the same time, like I know this deck right here relies on energy acceleration, but if you can play all your energy acceleration, all your own abilities, play a Hex, turn off their abilities, take a good knockout, and then they can't energy accelerate or anything after that, you can usually end up, really getting ahead like that. Another consistency card that you don't usually see being played is Claydoll. Claydoll is one of those cards that lets you look for 3 basic Pokemon up to 120 HP and put them into your hand. So it doesn't go straight to your bench, so you have a little bit more freedom of how you decide to play those actual cards. But it gives you access to Tapu Koko, Regieleki, Zapdos, lets you find that Electabuzz that's a higher HP. And actually, there's not even a Buddy Poffin in this list, is there? I do not see one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just a more familiar looking spread Lightning list.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's familiar, but there's still a lot of these things going on with this list that you're like,
yeah,
that's really interesting. First off, my eyes jump to Pot Helmet as a 30, damage reduction tool right there. With the Ether Paradise Conservation Area, which is also a damage reduction scheme, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's really interesting to see that because Lightning Pokemon aren't known for tanking. But when your game plan is, Electivire as early and as often as you can, maybe, if you can stick that Electivire a couple turns, maybe it's worth it. So it's cool and interesting to see those 2 cards. Lana's Aid as a recovery tool lets you get 3 Pokemon or 3 energy in any combination, really, from your discard pile back to your hand is really neat to see. It's just really cool. You see Boss here. Sometimes I see Counter Catcher in that spot. So I'm curious about the thought process behind that too. Boss is great, especially when you have Zapdos and you're trying to get around a, bench barrier early. I've seen Counter Catcher do similar things. You mentioned Timer Ball being just flip 2 tails. Obviously here it's a little bit different because not only do you just get to discard it before you discard your hand with Sprint. So it's just like a preemptive discard, Josh.
There you go.
You don't even have to really hit the coins if you don't want to.
I see it there. That is much better.
Yeah, yeah. And then 40 HP Dynamo. I'm wondering if that's a concession to Monkey Dory, which can ping 30 damage counters to your opponent's, to your opponent's side, which of course would be this player's side. So, we saw 30 HP with the other lightning list. Now we see 40 HP. Difference between 30 and 40 HP, minimal, but it does matter in some matchups. I'm wondering if that was the thought process behind that too. So like I can see the choices and I like them a lot.
Oh yeah, and definitely the pot helmet and the Aether's, was it Paradise? It's not Aether's Paradise. Conservation Center.
Ether Paradise Conservation Area, probably the longest name for a stadium that doesn't see a lot of play.
The Conservation Stadium. I do like the fact that we're trying to get Electivire to stay in there for a few more turns. I don't know what else it would be for, so it has to be probably for Electivire, maybe Raichu, but a couple rounds of Electivire and a couple of rounds with Raichu, you're taking out. I mean, that's 50 damage to everything. With the Raichu, it's 50 damage to everything, including yourself. Electivire is more safe. It requires one more energy. But if you get at least 2 rounds with Electivire, that is pretty devastating to your opponent. 100 damage to everything. That weakens, most of your opponent's Pokemon to things that can be cleaned up with a Regieleki attack, can be cleaned up with the Tapu Koko attack. And it's just, I do like the thought going into that. And I wonder if this person thought also about, maybe I should throw that Raikou in that takes 20 less damage as well, as just like an interesting include as well. I know that it wouldn't fit as well, but we already got Pot Helmet, we got the Conservation Center, we got all sorts of damage reduction. Let's go all the way with it.
Yeah, another kind of cool, besides soaking up all this damage, another cool thing to note is this list can't hit more than 120 without damage mods. So like Regieleki is the biggest attacker. We saw the Swelling Flash, what's it called? Luxray in the other list that could hit for 180. Well, here hitting a big number is going to be tough without things like Electivire or Muscle Band or already having spread damage. So I think that's why we're going to see this list rely a little bit more on Hex and a little bit more on Silent Lab. And you're going to see Gladion in this list. And I know that's not something you see a lot in Lightning lists. You normally see Town Mat because Zapdos exists. So you have like a good early threat to take KOs. But I think this list is just saying, I need Zebstrika. And we know that Lightning needs Zebstrika if it's going to be doing anything in these matchups. So I really like Gladion is just a concession to Zebstrika is my best card. I better find it every match.
Oh, yeah. And I think when we look at this next list, that I just want to bring something up. Well, actually, I'll save it for later. I think it'll be more of a later thing. It'll be perfect. But we got 8th place, Aaliyah or Aliyah. I want to say Aaliyah R. We got a wonderful fighting Hitmontop deck. I love the include of Tinglu. I love the include of the Halucha, being able to ping 2 Pokemon on the bench, kind of gets in range for your Hitmontop plays, for your Hitmonlee plays. It's just really awesome to be able to, spread damage and kind of pick which one you are going to do. But also we see Machamp and the Machoke with the ability that kind of saves everything on the bench from other spread attacks, whether that be damage counters or even just straight damage. But yeah, this is more of a fighting deck that I really like. There's so many different ways that you can go with it. Tinglu is really good at being able to just get early damage onto everything, especially if there's stadiums out there. I do see that there are only 1, 2, 3 different stadiums in this list. So, that being said, if you do have, with this specific list, if you do Tinglu a few times, you don't have access to some of these cards that might help you set up a little bit more. So I would like to see a little bit more stadiums in this specific deck if you're going to play Tinglu, but maybe Tinglu is for, discarding your opponent's stadiums more so. So maybe leaning heavily into the Hitmon combo, first. And then if there are stadiums that your opponent play, such as, Lost City, Parallel City, just things that you don't want your opponent to have. Maybe they have Crystal Cave out there and they're starting to heal damage. You might play Tinglu, do 30 damage to everything, get rid of that at the same time, and then they can't get that unless if they recover it somehow. So I do like this style of Hitmondogi deck with the include of Tinglu, and there's just so many things that you can do with this deck, and obviously it did super well. I don't even think it plays the Team Magma Great Ball, where it searches out a specific basic energy. So I do enjoy this fighting list. What about you, Jeff?
Well, obviously no Ninja Boy. That's the first thing I noticed. And so again, a little sad, but I'm going to respect other people's wishes to not play Ninja Boy. It's okay. All right. But same thing.
That Ninja Boy.
It's so good. Just imagine starting Halucha and being like, no, it's a Ting Lu, right? Like so good. But the Ting Lu it can be really oppressive. Like in the first couple of turns, 30 damage everywhere is so good. Like so ridiculously good, and so Ting Lu also having 140 HP, and then, being this utilitarian card that can discard your opponent's stadiums or even discard your own artisan if you don't want to give your opponent access to it is really cool, nifty. Now, obviously, we mentioned 3 stadiums, but Colress, Tenacity, and Guzman Hala both give the deck, a little bit more ounce to those 3 stadiums. No Lusamine, though, so really no way to recover stadiums once they're gone. And then I don't see, what's the Stadium Nav, which is the item card that lets you, it's Timer Ball for stadiums, right?
Yeah,
we don't see that here either. Sonya is a really cool card, setup card plus energy. We do see the 8 energies. We see those 4 special energies plus the 4 basics. I mean, it's just, it's a really good list, really strong list. And, Ting Lu has been growing on me recently. I don't know if I'd play it in my Hitmon Bros list just because it's really hard to play into bench barriers. And once you're known as the spread guy in your locals, people start playing their bench barriers. So, you have to discard your Silent Lab before you do any of the damage. So if you don't play Hex, you can't really use it too much. But, I like it a lot in this list into an unknown field where a lot of types aren't running bench barrier or don't even have access to them. I like it a lot. So, kudos to Eli. Love this list. Love what it's doing. It good.
Yeah, and obviously to make top 8 and 109 different players, it is a decently successful deck, so good job.
New segment time.
New segment.
I guess before we get to the new segment, any closing thoughts, Josh, about the EUIC? Obviously, diverse deck list, which is what I love to see. Obviously, Top Dog was still kind of list to a certain degree, but like diverse top 8, even though we only had a couple of different types here and there. It's just really cool to see what people picked and chose to play and to bring that tournament. And that's kind of what my final thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was, especially with the top 8, it being like 50% decks that we would not expect up there, but have done well in the past. But, we wouldn't expect them to do too well right now. Even back in the day, Lightning lists were making it to top 8. And I believe Raikou was available to play at that time. But even then, Raikou wasn't in that deck. It was more an Electivire, clean it with Raichu type of Lightning deck. So that deck has always, is obviously proven in the right pilot's hands, good to play at these specific tournaments. And especially if you're drawing well, Lightning Spread, I think, is pretty good into a diverse, big tournament. Other than that, it was awesome to see Metal do so well. Metal isn't like a deck that is very widely played. It's not a deck you see in the top 8 on such big tournaments, but it was definitely, I think, probably a good meta call into a colorless and spread type of meta, but also dependent on matchups as well. So if you hit a lot of spread, you might have went all the way with Metal, but if you hit more water or hit more colorless, you might have not done too well. But kudos to everybody that did super well to get in the top 8 in a 109 player tournament at EUIC, and congrats on, I'm sure prizing was awesome at these tournaments, since they are such, a regional level type of style of GLC tournament. So it's awesome. And I'm excited to get into this next segment.
Oh, yeah. Quick attack, baby. So what we're going to be doing is we just got, I think it was like 6 or 7 topics that just, haven't really been able to kind of squeeze into what we wanted to do. And so we're going to go at it. And so how it's going to work is Josh and I are going to split a minute, 30 seconds each to talk on a couple different topics. Once that minute's up, we're gone. We're going to do our best to share our time. Josh, we're sharers, right? I think we're sharers.
Yeah, very sherry. Very sherry. Sherry is carry. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I hear all of that. I hear. So that's going to be our job. So we're going to try it out today. 6 topics. If you have an idea for a topic that you want Josh and I to spend a minute on, this is just something that we haven't gotten around to, just drop it down below in the comment section. We'll do our best to hit them up. Again, we love this. We have a list of like 40 things that we just thought up randomly the other day. So, we're going to keep probably doing this, not all the time, but definitely something we're going to try. I think we even got a timer working, Josh. I'm excited to see if the timer actually works.
It works. It does work. It works well.
Let's get to it.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'll start us off with Kofu. Put 2 cards from your hand onto the bottom of your deck and draw forward 4. We've seen this card getting hated on by Andrew Mahone, a.k.a. Tricky Jim. I just think this card is so good in certain decks. It's all about resource management, putting cards onto the bottom of your deck and then being able to draw forward, not only with Kofu, but in other ways. Lightning loves to see this deck, and my Meganium deck that's playing the Beautifly, that's playing so many supporters that you can't play, loves to throw those on the bottom and draw forward 4 as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really good at math, you would know that -3 + 4 nets you 1 card. And then also, I've heard of players that really enjoy, having this in their hand and not wanting to ever play it, So, I mean, Kofu is one of those cards that, might be good in a deck that's already bad to make it a little bit good. But Kofu is just one of those cards that, is your grandpa that you bring to your party that you're like, maybe not. But then we got bench barriers. Bench barriers are awesome. They prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attacks. Really good against spread attacks like we saw in EUIC. Which, by the way, I want to use some of my time to mention that we didn't see Kofu in any of the top 8 decks, by the way. And then we have, bench barriers that protect all damage. They're great. They're awesome. Why would you not play them?
I'm really kind of sad to see that people aren't playing bench barriers these days, but it's not even about spread damage these days. I'm more worried about snipe damage. And so every time I look at a list and I see that people aren't playing a bench barrier, but they're playing something that has like 90 or less HP or 60 or 8 less HP, that's so important to their gameplay, and especially in Psychic. Like Kirlia, so important. Natu, so important. Like, if you're not playing bench barrier Mew and you're letting those things get sniped, just like, what are you doing? Like, it's so good. Just play it. And even in water, just play Manaphy. Don't let your artillery get sniped. Come on, chat. All right. OG Colress is a card that people have been hating on these days. Shuffle your hand into your deck and draw a number of cards equal to your number of bench Pokemon. So you get to draw 10 cards at certain points in the game. But my biggest thing has been recently is that I draw it too early. And now all of a sudden I'm drawing 3, 4 cards and shuffling my hand. Obviously have to do it out of necessity, but I would just rather have Cynthia or even Marnie or Tate and Liza in those spots than OG Colress.
Yeah, Colress is an enabler. It enables Kieran to attack for 1 energy. That is no-go, especially when Dragon's so good right now and, doing so well. But Colress, yeah, it's either you might draw 1, you might draw 2, you might draw 10, but Cynthia lets you draw 6 all the time. I think Cynthia is probably the better card, but Colress is a card that could be really good, could also be extremely bad. Then we got Claydoll. Yeah, Claydoll is one of those ones that people are always asking for. It's basically kind of like Kofu, but way better, and that's why people want it. You take 2 cards, put it on the bottom of your deck, draw up to 6. So Claydoll would enable fighting to probably go from here to here. So maybe we don't need Claydoll, but people want it, and it might actually bring up a hard precedent of bringing back old cards as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's put in the Celebrations pack, and so people want it because of that reason. It's just too good for what fighting already has. Like, fighting is 1 energy punch people in the face. And so one of the things that's been holding fighting back from being really good is that you can't recur cards like Okie Dokie or do other busted things with simple basics. Well, I mean, Claydoll would just be too good. Like, imagine, like, even like Archeops that stops evolutions, having access to this Claydoll becomes more consistent. That's just not stuff I want. Let's keep Claydoll gone for now. Battle VIP Pass. I mean, you can only use this card during your first turn, get 2 basic Pokemon and put it on your bench. You guys have followed me for a while. You guys know I want flexible cards in my deck. I don't really ever want to play Battle VIP Pass, and when I do play it, I understand why. Like, I'm going to play it in Turbo Colorless, but just imagine drawing a single use or single turn use card at any point in the late game as fighting. When you're fighting for good type decks, I can't put Battle VIP Pass in my decks, Josh.
I think Battle VIP Pass is only good in decks that like to lost zone cards, discard cards, and at any point, very easily. Battle VIP Pass, other than that, is just one of those dead cards. Always, all the time. You're never going to get it first time unless if you get it that one time. But other than that, Battle VIP Pass, Great Standard, not good in GLC. I would not play it, but I know the Chinese one has a gold one that's worth $200. And then we have, the little guys, the very little guys. We got Tynamo 30 HP, Stomp 50, Sobble 60. We've got several other different basics that are low. And with all the different Pokemon, such as Raging Bull and different things that can do these donks so early on, and Monkey Dory, do you play these guys? I know that Snom you have to. Sobble, you might play the 70. Tynamo, you might play the 40. Other than that, they're tiny.
I just miss the time when you could like pick optimal basics for things other than their HP, right? Like, give me an optimal attack, give me free retreat. These are all things I want to pick for my basic. And we're seeing those cards get power crept. You mentioned Raging Bolt, Monkey Dory. We've got the Dust Clops that can put 5 damage counters on something. Like, all these cards are just getting pushed out of our format. I don't know if it's good or not, but like, I'm definitely getting a little bit sad for that. And that's it. That's Quick Attack.
It's all the time we have for Quick Attack. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, like Jeff said earlier, if you want us to do a specific topic that you're interested in, let us know down in the comments. That would be awesome. Come up with some ideas that you actually want to hear, not the things that Jeff and I want to hear. We have our list, but we'd like to make a new list with everything everybody else wants to hear. But we're also here to talk about some. Oh yeah, Jeff. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I mean, I did it feel like Josh was bullying me, chat? Like, I felt like Kofu was getting a lot of extra hate there. He got talked about in 2 different segments. So, just gonna throw it out there.
I sacrifice some of my own time.
So hey, again, if you're watching this later, not only drop us some ideas, but also give some love for my boy Kofu, and also me for that savagery by Josh there. I thought we were partners, friend. I feel betrayed.
Kofu's a good guy, but he's not a great guy. He's got some skeletons in the closet.
I'm not even going to bring up the fact that you hated on Lost City and then played it in your deck at regionals, Josh. So I'm going to bring that up.
You know my plan. We make Lost City so good it gets banned.
Oh,
that's the plan. I'm playing the long game right now.
That's fine. I dislike it.
Yeah, I dislike Lost City so much. I'm trying to get it so good that we get rid of it.
Gotcha. Are you putting it on the bottom of your deck and drawing forward for it? Because that's what it sounds like you're doing, Josh. Just saying, you're Kofuing Lost City right now.
I am. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to Kofu it to the Lost Zone. Other than Jeff's thin skin, we got Eye on the Prize. We're going to talk about some cards that you can, if you have bad prizes, you might be able to manipulate or look into your prizes to be able to, pull off that game winning play. One of those awesome, first cards, we got the HHB, double HB, baby. We got the Hisuian Heavy Ball that lets you look into your prizes and grab a basic out of there for free. You replace that basic with the Hisuian Heavy Ball. So there is the off chance that you do get it back on your prizes, which happens to me like almost every game. I don't know how that happens. But Heavy Ball just allows you to get that basic out of the prizes, put it into your hand, and it's, super helpful. And especially if you're decently skilled, you can use at prize checking, you can use a ball guy to be able to, get a Hisuian heavy ball out and know what basic is prized. Make sure that you didn't play that basic down at the beginning or it's in your hand first, but definitely if you are skilled more at prize checking, Hisuian heavy ball and ball guy have some good synergy there. What do you think about Hisuian heavy ball?
Yeah, 2 truths to the Pokemon TCG. Every deck has prizes. Every deck has basics. I just think Hisuian heavy ball is an auto include in every single deck, whether you find the space for it or not. I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, there's this one deck that doesn't need it. Okay, that's fine. That's full. You do that. But for me, Hisuian heavy ball is like the start of my deck building process, right? So it's just really important. I think that we should be playing it in every single deck. That's all I got. Hisuian heavy ball, so good. Wait till they give us an evolution version of this. Just like whatever Kalos ball they're going to give us, it's going to be Kalos heavy ball. It just gets evolutions. I'm going to be so psyched when that card comes out.
Or like stage 1, stage 2s. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, and there's such a huge suite of item cards that are just auto includes in decks that are just really good. The ball suite, it's getting too big. The Pokemon search is just getting too big. We had Buddy Poffin get in. And you're like, okay, what do I replace this with? And some people opting, to get rid of Nest Ball sometimes, maybe just, take something out, maybe a quick ball if your deck doesn't really want to discard anything. So it's just becoming the suite of item cards or Pokemon search is just becoming too big. It's like, okay, what do I put in? What do I cut? And it just makes decisions a little bit harder.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. The 60 card is actually becoming quite a limit. You look at the other singleton format that's really popular out there. Commander is a 100 card format, and people are struggling with all the years worth of cards that Magic has to fit 100 cards in the deck. And here we are, struggling with 60 cards at times. And I'm trying to play. I got so many balls in my deck. I'm like, I got his, Apricorn Maker plus Ball Guy in some of my decks, just because I think that that's how important some of these balls and search cards are. So, Hisuian heavy ball, I think it's an auto start for most decks. But again, there's a deck out there that doesn't want it. Someone's going to tell me about it. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, your using Apricorn Maker and Ball is almost equivalent to playing, Gloria and Bridget. It's just more of a deck thinner, and it just thins things on top of things.
And it can get you evolutions. One of my big things is always flexibility in cards that you have. So whereas Bridget and Gloria are going to be really bad in the mid to late game, if you were to draw Apricorn Maker or Ball Guy on turn 2 or 3, you still got outs to Level Ball, Ultra Ball, and Timer Ball as potential ways to get you evolution Pokemon. And then if you're running, you talked about Team Magma's Great Ball or even Team Aqua's Ball, then you have outs to Energy as well. So you can make those cards work in your deck to be really flexible. And I think Hisuian Heavy Ball is a really cool part in that, because even if some of your basics aren't prized, it's an easy discard to Ultra Ball or Quick Ball off of those Ball Guys or Apricorn Makers. So, I just think, make your cards work. Arazu, do not play Arazu. Someone just mentioned Arazu in chat. Oh goodness, a lot of people love Arazu, and we'll save that for a different topic on a different day.
Man, that was a crazy reaction, man. That was crazier than my Kofu reaction. You broke into a sweat there.
I can't even. I like Arazu a lot. The full art's super sweet. That card is cool. But I can't bring myself to play it, and I see other people play it all the time, and I respect them for it, but I'm not going to do it. But we'll talk about it a different day why we're not going to play it. That'll be one of our quick attacks, I'm sure, Josh.
Oh, yeah, that'd be an awesome quick attack. Some other things that we can, get into our prizes with is the big 3. We got Town Map, which, allows you to cherry pick the prizes that you make whenever you take prizes. We got Gladion that lets us play that card, and it's basically a Hisuian heavy ball for anything in your prizes. It's just going to be your supporter for turn. And then you got Peonia, which lets you put up the 3 prize cards into your hand. Then for each prize card you put into your hand, you can put, those 3 cards out of your hand face down again as well. And I think you can just put it down without having to shuffle it. So you can kind of cherry pick your prizes as well. If you're good at those memory games. But other than that, these are like some of your biggest ways you're going to be able to get into your prizes. And, Town Map and Gladion are always those two cards that, depending on the play style of your deck, you're going to use one of those.
Yeah. And when I'm thinking about my decks, when I'm sitting down to build a new deck, I'm thinking about what the deck is doing and thinking about what prize card or what prize picker is going to be my best option. Town Map is just so good in decks that are really aggressive off the bat. If you're running Zapdos or Hoopa, or if you're running Turbo Colorless, I think Town Map is probably the first card that you think of. And it does have a little bit of anti-synergy because we just showed Hisuian Heavy Ball that has to grab face down prizes. So sometimes like Snorlax is prized, or something is prized in Lightning that you can't get if you've already played Town Map first before you play Hisuian Heavy Ball. But you usually, it's like if you're playing Town Map, your Town Map on the turn that you're going to take a KO, and that way you can pick and choose what you want. Gladion is just like if you got a pop-off card, or you've got one card that's going to just change the game for what your deck does, you got to play Gladion, in my opinion. You look at grass oftentimes. Just imagine if you Gladioned or Torterra, and then Torterra basically, or not Torterra, Grottle. You grab Grottle. Grottle basically sets up your entire board that turn, or grabbing a rare candy, explosive, getting Roserade, and that's just grass. We talked about Zebstrika and Lightning. Gladion, if it gets you that one card, then you got to play Gladion. And those are a lot of types that I mentioned that are going to really, really like Gladion. I think Psychic needs to play Gladion. I've seen a couple Psychic lists playing Town Map. Kirlia is so important to the deck. Getting into Kirlia, into Gallade, it's just it lets that deck do its things. So I really want to play Gladion in that spot. Peonia's kind of weird, Josh. I don't really like Peonia in a lot of different decks. It can unlock bad hands. All right. I've opened up a bad 7. I've got, 3 or 4 cards that aren't going to be great to the late game. It's kind of like a Kofu for your prizes. You put
just about to say.
Put those cards in your prizes, grab 3 more, and hopefully you've grabbed some Ball Search or maybe an Evolution Grabber. And it can do the same thing that Gladion does. It's just less precise. And then we talked about combos a couple weeks ago. One of the coolest combos, I don't even know if we mentioned it, was Town Map into Peonia. Flip over all your prizes, pick 3 of those, put them into your hand, and then you can hide 3 prizes from your opponent face down that where they are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool, nifty combo, but it is 2 spots dedicated to prize getting. And so that's kind of where I draw the line.
Yeah. It's like one of the, I was talking about the simplicity of that line deck, or that combo is a little too cute, but it's really fun if you can do it. It takes away some consistency, but it's really fun if you can pull it off. So it's definitely fun, but I probably wouldn't recommend it if you're going to big tournaments. But maybe at locals, you could, have fun with your buddy a little bit with that combo.
Yeah, it's nifty. Once someone pulls off, you're like, that's nifty, and you'll enjoy it. Yeah, it might win you more games.
Then you have the other guys. You got Rotom decks. Rotom decks, after you counting your prize cards, shuffle them into your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them face down as your prize cards. So Rotom decks, there's the off chance that you might just put it straight back in to your prizes again, which is not fun. But Exchange Ticket, recently got, out or released, or I think maybe in a future set, but Exchange Ticket is basically a better Rotom decks, to where you take those prizes, you shuffle them, put it on the bottom of your deck, and then you draw the top remaining and put those onto your prizes now. So it keeps your prizes from being shuffled back into your deck and then back into the prizes. So it's just a better, like a switch out. If you play Rotom decks, you're probably going to play Exchange Ticket now, depending on your play style, and if you want to guarantee those prizes won't go back into the prizes.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's kind of funny that these cards exist, just because bad prizing is such bad variance. And now you're, the other 3 cards we talked about, Town Map, Gladion, Peonia, they get rid of that variance by letting you select. Even Peonia lets you put back 3 cards and know where they are. So it gives you some kind of autonomy over your prizes. And these cards are kind of did you like the variance of prizing? Well, let's do it again, baby. let's see if you can get that same variant. So, if you're into rolling the die, like these are the two cards to go for. The only card I really ever considered Rotom decks in was Psychic Lost Zone, because Psychic Lost Zone is such a powerful deck. It used to like really only lose to itself in certain situations. So like if you could get rid of that variant, that's fine. But you mentioned it, like you're just gonna shuffle Colress's Experiment back into your prizes off of Rotom decks and be the saddest person we've ever seen, right? So Exchange Ticket gets rid of at least that aspect of variance, but now you've gotten Colress's Experiment out of your prizes, but you've prized Sableye. So like, are you any better off? Like that's kind of like what I'm looking for. A lot of variance in these cards, and that's usually what prize getters eliminate. And so why play them if you're trying to get rid of them and adding to it?
Yeah, and then now you have to prize check for a second time that game. And then now you have to look at your discard. You got to look at your hand. You got to see what's all played. You got to look at all these different things now. And if there's a card that you still had in the deck that you played Exchange Ticket on or Rotom decks on, and it's back in the prizes or it made it into the prizes somehow, man, now you got to figure it out. Now you got to figure out that puzzle. So it just kind of makes prizing a little bit, you don't want to prize check twice. And you might want to get that combo, but now you can't because it's back in the prizes, or it went into the prizes when you were trying to make that combo.
I would love to see like a Dream Ball combo there, right? Like if you're playing Fire, you could Macargo, stack your deck, put Dream Ball on top of it, Exchange Ticket, right? And then like that's kind of like cool, right? You've gotten Dream Ball into your thing, which I mean it's a meme, right? But like Exchange Ticket does open up kind of a cool thing that you could do. I'm even thinking in Colorless. Colorless has the Chansey that like lets you take an extra prize, and you have Oranguru, right? So you could like put the Chansey on top of your deck, right? With Oranguru, with Primate Wisdom or whatever the ability is called, and then Exchange Ticket. So there's like a lot of like cool nifty things that you can do. So I do like the game design of Exchange Ticket much better than Rotom decks. So it'll be cool to see like what people do with these lists and try to do with them in Gym Leader Challenge.
Oh yeah. But other than that, you won't see these in my own decks because I'm not about prize checking twice.
It's already a chore enough. That should maybe be one of our other. I don't even know if we'll have enough time for the quick attack, but talking about prizes and quality of life improvements in GLC, but we'll talk about that a little different.
Yeah, we can have themed quick attacks.
Ooh,
cool. But we got poor prizing, poor draws, peak GLC. You know who made this meme? Jeff, our boy Jeff made this meme. It's a really good meme, quality meme. Give him some claps in the chat, claps in the comments. Let him know he did well.
Yeah, I told Josh this is my entire Gym Leader Challenge career. I'm always poor prizing. I'm always poor drawing. But those are some of the most fun games when you're struggling to make lemons out of, or at least lemonade out of grapes. You're doing your best as you can. It can be fun. It's peak GLC for me.
Oh yeah, I know that I've had plenty of opponents to where we got so bad prizing they can't do anything. I'm not drawing anything. And then we're just sitting there in a stalemate, just, having a grand old time, just draw passing for as long as we possibly can.
Know thy enemy. One of the most important things. And when you're both draw passing, you guys can relate. I think someone told me the other day, someone was playing like a Badoo down and like Badooed for 19 straight turns, and like neither player was able to play any other cards basically like those entire turns, which I find maybe a little bit exaggerated. Like it had to have been, right? Something had.
Yeah, that's 190 damage.
But yeah, it's still crazy to think about like what certain cards can do to our matchups and what poor prizing and poor drawing can do too.
I mean, depending, 190 damage, you're probably winning. Right there, you're probably 3-4 prizes deep into that game.
That's like 3 evolving basics right there.
Exactly, it's crazy. But that brings us to the end of our GLC Unfazed Facts podcast. I've been your host, Joshua Benson, with my co-host Jeff Baisch, and we want to make sure that you guys have a great week. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of the new segment, and if there's anything you want us to talk about on the next podcast, we do have a special guest coming up in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, always remember, stay thankful, and we'll see you later.